Ukrainian soldiers just rescued a cat and a dog off the front lines by drone. Picture this, you're a cat. You've survived artillery barrages, drone strikes, the general chaos of a frontline outpost in eastern Ukraine. Your soldier gets wounded and medevaced out. And then, just when things look bleak, a logistics drone shows up and airlifts you to safety. That actually happened, and it's the most Ukrainian story I've heard all year. Hey friends, Wes O'Donnell here, Army infantry and Air Force veteran, and dog owner of Loki McSmokey and Cow Cows. And before you file this under cute animal content, I need you to stay with me because underneath the feel-good headline is something genuinely important about how Ukraine is pioneering logistical drone doctrine. This is past attack drones. This is past surveillance. This is with something quieter and, in some ways, more revolutionary. The utility drone. According to United24 Media, soldiers from Ukraine's 14th Separate Mechanized Brigade used a frontline logistics drone, one that had just delivered food to a forward position and sent it back carrying 2 passengers. First a cat, roughly 12 kilometers to safety, and then a dog on the same route, with the same improvised airlift. Now, the cat belonged to a soldier who'd been hospitalized with injuries. His comrades refused to leave it behind. The dog? Well, nobody was leaving the dog either. Soldiers were filmed petting both animals in shelter footage afterward. But here's what you need to understand about the environment these soldiers are operating in. The front in Ukraine has become one of the most lethal stretches of land on Earth. Anything that moves in daylight is a target. Vehicle resupply runs are ambushed, routes that were open last week are drone hunted this week, the traditional logistics chain, trucks, supply convoys, even foot runners, has been systematically shredded by surveillance drones on both sides. Ukraine has also effectively lost what military medicine calls the golden hour. That's the critical window after a battlefield wound, during which a soldier's odds of survival go up dramatically if he can reach medical care. Casualty evacuation on the modern Ukrainian front routinely takes far longer than any sane combat medic would accept as normal. The battlefield geometry, the constant drone coverage, contested routes, and heavily mined terrain has stretched that window into something almost unrecognizable. So how do you feed troops at a position that's too exposed for a vehicle? How do you get batteries and ammo and medical supplies to a forward outpost when the road is a kill zone? Well, you fly it in by drone. It seems obvious now, but trust me, it wasn't obvious just a couple years ago. Ukraine has built a drone logistics ecosystem that is, frankly, unlike anything that's existed before in conventional warfare.
High five. All right.
Now, United24 didn't identify the specific drone model used in this animal rescue, but the mission profile tells us a lot. We're talking about a heavy multi-rotor, the kind Ukrainian units have been deploying for short-range cargo runs to positions that are too hot for wheels. The most famous of these is the Vampire, which Russian troops have nicknamed Baba Yaga after the terrifying witch from Slavic folklore. The Vampire is a heavy octocopter capable of carrying payloads north of 20 kilograms. It operates in both strike and logistics configurations, sometimes in the same night. In attack mode, it drops 82mm mortar rounds with terrifying precision. In logistics mode, it carries food, batteries, and medical supplies to positions that haven't seen a vehicle resupply in days. Then there's the R-18, another octocopter optimized for cargo runs with a payload capacity and flight profile well suited to the kind of 10 to 15 kilometer supply hop that defines frontline sustainment in this war. Ukrainian units have been flying R-18s in conditions that would ground most commercial delivery drones. At night, in contested airspace, with active jamming on both sides of the line. For longer range logistics, Ukrainian units have also been experimenting with fixed-wing cargo drones like the Mugen 5 Pro, a platform with a range measured in hundreds of kilometers rather than tens. Fixed-wing logistics drones sacrifice the hover and drop flexibility of a multi-rotor, but they gain speed and range and efficiency. For getting supplies from a rear depot to a forward distribution point, they are brutally effective and far harder to intercept than a slow multi-rotor crossing open ground. Now, none of these platforms exist in isolation. What Ukraine has built is a tiered logistics architecture. Long-range fixed-wing drones for moving bulk supplies from rear areas to forward hubs, heavy multi-rotors doing the final dangerous kilometer to the actual fighting positions. It's modeled loosely on how civilian last-mile logistics work, except the last mile is a kill zone. Business Insider reported that one Ukrainian brigade moved 200 metric tons of goods by drone in a single month. That is an operational logistics network functioning at industrial scale. For all you future U.S. Army logistics officers watching this video right now from West Point, I hope you're taking notes because Ukraine just changed how resupplying expeditionary forces works. And the payloads aren't just food and ammunition. Ukrainian units have used logistics drones to deliver blood plasma, trauma supplies, and other medical gear directly to positions where casualty evacuation is too dangerous to attempt. That's a drone functioning as a forward pharmacy and blood bank simultaneously. Medical officers on the Ukrainian side have described drone-delivered tourniquets and hemostatic agents reaching wounded soldiers faster than any ground route could manage, not because the drone is fast, but because the drone doesn't need a road that isn't being watched. So the most operationally significant example of this system under pressure came during the grinding battle for Avdiivka before its fall in early 2024. Ukrainian units holding positions in and around the coke plant were at various points effectively cut off from conventional resupply. Road approaches were covered by Russian FPV drones and artillery. Armored vehicles that attempted supply runs were targeted. The units that held the longest were, in significant part, the units that had the most mature drone logistics pipelines feeding them. They weren't eating well, they weren't comfortable, but they were supplied by air, by rotors, by Ukrainian engineers who had built a workaround for a road network that had effectively ceased to exist as a safe logistics asset. That's the operational reality underneath the cat and dog story. The drone that airlifted those animals back to safety didn't exist in a vacuum. It existed because Ukraine spent 3 years building logistics ecosystems under fire. And that ecosystem is now so normalized, so woven into the daily frontline life that a return leg became a rescue mission. And here's what I actually want you to sit with. This rescue only happened because drone logistics in Ukraine are not exotic anymore. They are routine. And that matters enormously because routine is how military technology changes the world. Not when it's a prototype, not when it's a headline, when it's just boring, when it's just Tuesday. Ukraine is in the middle of a utility drone revolution that almost nobody is talking about with the seriousness it deserves. For years, the conversation about drones in Ukraine was dominated by two categories: attack drones and surveillance drones. FPV kamikaze strikes, Lancet loitering munitions, Shahed corridors, ISR coverage, find, fix, track, all of that. Now, that's real and important, but war has a way of dragging technology into the mundane once it proves it can survive contact with reality. It happened with trucks, with radios, with GPS, with the internet. A tool that works under fire gets used for everything. Ukraine built a drone ecosystem, and they did it under bombardment, under constant industrial stress, improvising supply chains and manufacturing pipelines that didn't exist 4 years ago. Ukrainian companies and military units are now producing thousands of drones a month across dozens of types. Not all of them are meant to kill anything. Some carry food, some carry batteries and tourniquets. Some apparently carry cats. The strategic implication here is significant. As drone logistics mature, the traditional vulnerabilities of frontline infantry, the supply chain, the casualty evacuation chain, the communications chain can all be partially decoupled from the road network. It changes what a sustainable forward position actually looks like. It changes what isolation means on a modern battlefield, and it changes expeditionary warfare. Ukraine's adversary understands this. Russia has been aggressively targeting Ukrainian drone infrastructure and the operators themselves, because if you can sever the drone ecosystem, you degrade its entire frontline sustainment model. That's how seriously both sides now take the utility drone. And I want to close on something that might sound sentimental, but it isn't. There is no moral equivalence in this war. I know that makes some people uncomfortable. Modern conflict coverage loves to flatten everything into a both sides suffer mush, as if moral clarity were somehow impolite. It isn't. Russian forces have repeatedly been documented committing deliberate cruelty toward animals in occupied and liberated areas, not incidental battlefield chaos, but something uglier and more deliberate. Dogs shot in the street by Russians, animals mutilated, reports from liberated Kherson that read like a crime scene. Contrast that with Ukrainian soldiers using a logistics drone on a return leg to airlift a wounded man's cat to safety and then going back for the dog. War is brutal. No army is perfect, but there remains a very clear difference between soldiers who make room for mercy under pressure and those who seem to find sport in eliminating it. In war, mercy is character under pressure, and character is what separates an army from a pack of armed vandals. Ukraine pioneered the attack drone, Ukraine pioneered the FPV swarm, and now, quietly, Ukraine is pioneering the utility drone, a technology that feeds troops, moves supplies, evacuates casualties, and yes, on a good day, rescues a cat and a dog from the front lines. That is what an army that intends to win looks like. That's it for today, my friends. If you want to help support the channel and keep this kind of analysis going, you can join as a member for about $3 a month. It's a simple way to back the work I do here. If not, no pressure at all. Just make sure you're regular subscribed so you stay in the loop. But as this war keeps evolving, if you're the type who wants the deeper cuts, the longer reads, the stuff I don't always put on YouTube, I'm over at Substack. I will throw that QR code up right here on the screen. You can scan it and jump in, or if you can't scan it, it's just wesodonnell.com. That'll take you right to my Substack. I appreciate you being here. And as always, glory to Ukraine, glory to the heroes. Crimea is Ukraine.